Kamen Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my review for Kamen Rider Saber Episode 4. And this was another alright episode. Until next time. I'm just kidding. So, I talked last week about how Saber feels kind of hollow to me right now. I like a lot of the designs and concepts. There's certainly a lot going on. It's not as if it devolved into filler. But it just feels so hollow, and it feels like one of the most obvious shoving in your face toy shows. Especially when you compare it to Cara Major, which I think has done a really good job of debuting their things at a better pace, and then they make all the debuts memorable, whether it's a big story or a small story. I can remember even the smallest debut, and this one just feels like they're shoving it down our throats. Like, again, I know it's part of the Toku process, but this just feels a little bit extra for me. But anyway, this was a follow-up / end of this two-parter about this kid Sora, what's his name, Buster's son being kidnapped. And at the beginning of the episode, Saber's basically like, Toku nonsense, I'm gonna save your son, promises, and I'm wearing a stupid hat, and I hated looking at the stupid hat for a whole other episode. And his dad's mad, he's like, you can't promise that, and you already failed at your promise protecting that kid, and take that ridiculous hat off. And it's basically about, a little bit about how Saber is committed to keeping promises because he was ass at keeping promise to this little girl who he tried to keep from blowing away with the pinky promise. I'm like, well yeah, because you don't hold, like, here, I'm gonna stop you from falling off this cliff. So, like, that obviously isn't gonna work. So that's kind of what they revolved around, was showing, like, he wants to keep promises and proving that to Buster. And we debuted a lot of different books this week because, what's his name? Blades gives Buster a book, and then later there's another book featured when Calibur's reviving this other guy. And when before this, I have to back up a little bit. Saber goes to do some investigating because they're trying to figure out the monster's MO and like why he's different than they thought he was. And they're researching. It's funny that they research in the children's books, and that is one element that I like about the show. Not the researching the children's books, but I like that their research is fairy tale stuff because it makes sense. And I don't know, I kind of dig that. But anyway, they find out that the monster is kidnapping kids and people so that he can eat them, so he can become a Gigantamax salamander. And they track him down later, or they're on their way to track him down, and Calibur arrives with this villain who's some sort of known villain to the characters who knew him 15 years ago or whatever. And basically, Buster gives Saber the power-up item and says, you and Blades go find my kid and I'll hold this guy off, because he's putting his trust in him. I feel like this could have gone the opposite way. I get the whole point was to trust Saber and debut this new book, but if it were me, even if I was about to give this dude in the stupid hat the benefit of the doubt, I still would want to go find my kid myself. So I would have said, okay, I'm going to trust you to hold off this new villain guy while I go find my son. Or, why didn't Blades hold this dude off while he and Buster went to go save him? I don't know, that just bothered me, because I get the point was that he was supposed to trust him, but I feel like regardless, I would have gone instead of holding off the enemy. But he ended up defeating or holding off the enemy by boring him to death by opening the book and making it read. Like, seriously, there's so much long, drawn-out stuff in Saber with them opening the book and waiting for it to speak, and the overly long henshin sequences. Like I said, it reminds me of Power Rangers Samurai and having to watch the Mastodon Lion Thunderzord Power sequence a million times if you rewatch Season 2 of MMPR. But anyway, Saber and Blades then go to the dimension to fight the monster, and he shows off the Hedgehog one, but it's not quite enough to beat him because he can regenerate, so he uses all three books, his, Blades, and the Hedgehog one to debut a triple changer form, and he defeats him using the pendulum scale to summon a fairy and dragon monster, and he defeats him, and they save the kid, and he's like watching this whole fight, he's like, oh, this is so interesting, I like books now. I'm like, you realize that this was interesting because you were watching it happen, like a TV show, so you should want to watch TV. Reading stupid, TV rules. Oh, and I also forgot to mention that the annoying girl found one of those portal books and accidentally found her way to the dimension, and she's like, I'm gonna save Sora! But then she just wound up trapped in a bubble too. And then the episode ends with Calibur showing up and ruining his cool points by showing up with bubbles all around him. Not the monkey from Dragon Ball. And just when he's attacking Saber and Blades, who are tired from the battle, mainly Saber, the third rider, or the fourth rider now, saves them. And I was just thinking, like, well, I kind of wish we didn't debut the 3 books and this form in this episode, but at least we saved another rider. And then just at the end, I mean, it was just a teaser, but still, I feel like they're just moving so fast with everything. And they're gonna run out of stuff in this next handful of episodes, and then we're gonna hit an era of nothing, probably, before, like, the main forms start to debut. And if they doled this out, then they could actually have something to debut every episode. Like, the triple book thing felt like kind of a special thing, especially since they made a big deal about how it drains him, and I wish they would have saved that for a different episode. And then, like I said, they kept showing all these shots, like very specific shots of the books. I felt like I was watching QVC. They're like, oh, here it is, go buy it, kids. And it was just so obvious, and it feels so jam-packed with stuff. You know, we're dealing with all the plot of this episode, we're debuting 2 new forms, we're teasing a new rider, we're introducing this other villain from the 15 years ago or whatever, and then on top of that, they still haven't properly introduced that other guy that showed up last week, which, thank you in the comments to those of you that backed me up that that dude was just a shocker that he showed up acting like he'd been there before. But I mean, this episode was okay. I'd give it a 6.5. I didn't hate it or anything. I'm just having a hard time getting into the show, and I feel like they could slow the pace a little bit. What do you guys think of Saber so far? Let me know in the comments as usual. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get news from my videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.